أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على المبعوث رحمة للعالمين. The nature of our disputes in this world is a power struggle. Everybody's trying to gain power for themselves, for their group, for their influence. And for the believer, there is this notion of real greatness, real authority, real power. And today I wanted to look back through some of the descriptions of Allah that put a sense of self-confidence, a sense of contentment, a sense of courage and audacity, that we know that we are with greatness and that there is no other greatness. When we say Tawheed, the oneness of God, we're talking about the uniqueness in absolute perfection in every single quality that He has and represents. And so it's important for us to carry with us everywhere we go these qualities. Many people are fanatical about what they perceive to be greatness. If they perceive this person is the great politician, or this state is the greatest state, or this ideology is the greatest ideology, or this person is the most wealthy person, and then people look up to that and they assume that that is a source of greatness. But it is not. It has simply been allowed to have a positioning, it has been given the permission to have this right in creation. So when we say God is Al-Alaa, He is Al-Alaa, He is Al-Azim, He is Al-Kabir, He is Al-Mutakabbir, He is the exalted and the grand and the greatest of all, the most exalted, the source of all greatness. When we look at the end of Ayatul Kursi, وَهُوَ الْعَلِيُّ الْعَظِيمُ, to remind you that to be higher than others in every way, to be at the top, to be the one that is awe-inspiring, that is His business. And He allows people to have rights within that in the world. That is why we get confused in this world with what we perceive to be greatness in creation. So when we're being called back to Salah, we're being called back with the repetitive Allahu Akbar. God is greater. God is greater. God is greater. Meaning, whatever you're doing in this world, if you're busy making money and you're thinking, oh, I'm going to make all this money, or you're busy enjoying something that you really like, God is greater than that. His value, He is the source of that money and that thing you enjoy. He's the one that's put you in the position to have that. If you're struggling and you feel somebody's not doing you right, if you're not being treated fairly, if you're going through a tough time, God is greater than that. You will die and return to Him, and there will be no more pain, suffering, loss, difficulty, hardship. So God is greater. So He's pulling you in to the Salah with this mantra for this reason, so that you don't forget while living through this life of worldly material attachments and struggles, that you don't forget that God is greater than all of that. He's where we're going back to. Then in the Salah itself, Allahu Akbar, we're now praying in an intimate conversation as the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, defined the Salah. Then just before you're going to move again, Allahu Akbar, just in case your mind strayed a little bit. You see? And so this is the nature of greatness as we see it. Greatness for us is not about size, power, or wealth. It's about what we call transcendence. Is everybody familiar with the word transcendence? Okay, I think maybe a few of you. It means something that is beyond that which you can quantify. Something that is not, and that's the problem with atheists. Atheists need God to be a thing. They want him to be a guy sitting in the clouds with a lightning bolt in his hand so that they can disbelieve in him. But of course, we don't believe in such a God either. God is not a thing. He's not stuff. He's not something you say, oh, there he is right there. Right? Even the scholars, when they talked about the notion of the woman, it's interesting because some companions, they were concerned because a woman said that God is above. And so then some companions said, I don't know about that. Should we say it directly in that such a way, right? And so then the Prophet ﷺ came and then he said, leave her alone. She's right. So you have two groups of scholars, right? Two groups of scholars. You have the group of scholars that went literalist, which is basically the modern Saudi approach that took Ibn Taymiyyah's ideas and made it the most important ideas in the history of Islam from one guy. Okay? And they said, no, see, God is above. Okay, so God is above. Now, if somebody's on the opposite side of planet Earth right now, over in China, which way will they point? Above, So like, you can't quantify God. Other scholars, the majority of them in our history, the vast majority of them, said what it means is she's referring to God as something that is above and beyond us. That there is a metaphorical, rhetorical thing that because what does God say in the Quran? أَقْرَبُ مِنْكُمْ حَبْلِ الْوَرِيدِ. He's closer to you than your jugular vein. وَهُوَ مَعَكُمْ أَيْنَمَا كُنْتُمْ. He's with you wherever you are. فَأَيْنَمَا تُوَلُّوا فَثَمَّ وَجْهُ اللَّهِ. Whichever direction you turn, you're turning towards God. Because people got confused. Oh, why are we had one qibla, now we have another qibla? That's not the point. The point is God is teaching you that this purpose has lost its value and now this purpose is the future. And that's how human beings experience work. It's not about God being there or there. You see? And so that is, God is transcendent. He's wal-zahir wal-batin, right? He's something that's apparent by all of his influence, but yet you can't touch him. You're not supposed to be able to touch him or find him or say, there he is in my little speck of dust human brain has figured out the nature of the source of existence in and of itself. That's arrogance. You should never expect to be able to do that. That's atheism for you. They want it to be a thing that we can find it in a lab. You see? And so we're dealing with spirituality, something above and beyond all of that. We should never try to picture or imagine God in any way. This is blasphemy. The second you start saying, okay, God is like this is how God is, and I remember one book I was reading on Al-Aqeedah Bayn As-Salaf Wal-Khalaf, and the scholar who wrote this book, he was saying that, in the old days, in the early companions, they used to just accept verses that they knew were beyond their grasp because they knew God is that great, that God is that transcendent and exalted. So they didn't talk about it. They felt no need to put themselves in a position to, well, if God has a hand and an eye and what is this and that and he goes and comes and what does that mean? Where is he at? They felt that was useless for them to talk about because they knew he was above. Nowadays, you'll find books written by certain Saudi scholars that says, God has a face, a hand, he smiles, he laughs, he comes down, he goes up. And be like, but nowhere in the Quran does it talk about God like that. They are literally picturing him as a human being, isn't it? When God uses the Arabic language, right? If I said, Khalil, give me a hand, and then Khalil pulls out a knife and starts sawing off his hand, and it's like, here, Imam. What would you think is wrong with Khalil? He doesn't understand what I mean. I don't mean chop your hand off and give it to me. I mean go over there and help me out with something, please. Right? We understand what that means, right? But give me a hand is what we say, right? You see what I'm saying? Give me an ear. I mean listen. Right? Same thing. So this is where language historically has always been used like that. The Arabs used language like that before the Quran was revealed. And the Quran was revealed in what? Their language. So the vast majority of scholars throughout our history did not think like that. It's a very simpleton Bedouin approach that has made that like the way of thinking that you would be a blasphemer if you challenged it. You see what I'm saying? And that's what happens when you put such people in power. So, seeking knowledge is how we gain a sense of awe. Awe and reverence. Awe and reverence is something that you feel a sense of shyness, a sense of kind of like fear, but not like danger fear, just like, wow, I'm in the presence of greatness. Al-khashya, right? Khashya. So the Quran tells us, إِنَّمَا يَخْشَى اللَّهَ مِنْ عِبَادِهِ الْعُلَمَاء. You see, those who have knowledge are the ones who truly live in awe and reverence of God. And so that's why in our history, we always had a natural relationship with seeking the sciences as a spiritual directive. Nowadays, because of the weakness of the Muslim world and the lack of leadership and the lack of proper civilizational upliftment, people are starting to become like Christians were. Oh, the scientists, they're wrong, those bad, they're saying things. And of course, since the revolution in Europe, the scientists, basically atheist people wanted to become scientists because that gives them a purpose in life. Because without that, what is their purpose in life as an atheist? So they said, let's just figure everything out. So that became like their favorite thing to do. It doesn't mean they're right about their opinions, but definitely their bias will find its way in there. But Muslims were taught to be curious in learning about how things work and quantifying how they are, because you're getting a closer picture to the greatness of God and what He does and how He operates and how He has arranged and created things. So that was something beautiful about our history, is that there would be Muslim scholars who are writing on jurisprudence and creed, and then they would also write on astronomy and mathematics. And they would have books in both subjects. You have scholars throughout our history that delved in Ibn Rushd, who they call Averroes, wrote books in everything, right? And so he's seen as a scientist, a philosopher. He's seen as a chemist and a person with theories on medicine and surgery. So our value as people is not about material things. It's about how much we reflect God in our life. That's how He's great. That's where greatness comes forth, true greatness. So, إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يَنْظُرُ إِلَىٰ أَجْسَامِكُمْ وَأَمْوَالِكُمْ إِنَّمَا يَنْظُرُ إِلَىٰ قُلُوبِكُمْ وَأَعْمَالِكُمْ. So the Prophet, peace be upon him, said, God is not concerned or seeing your value through your physical appearance or your wealth. That's directly contradicting the modern American mentality of your worth. How buff, how hot, how whatever, all of those things. Instagram, all that stuff, okay? And then, this car, that car, and all of that. He's looking to your hearts. He cares about what's in your heart, what's your intentions, what motivates you, your spirituality, and then how that translates into action and words. That's where your value comes with Him. How much you reflect your knowledge and closeness of Him in who you are. So all we have, all we are, and all we could be are a blessing from His greatness and glory. Walillahi alhamd. That's the attitude that we have as believers. That's why the Prophet, peace be upon him, he said, whoever has an atom's weight of arrogance in their heart cannot even smell the fragrance of heaven. They will not get close. Smelling the fragrance is a metaphor of getting close to till you recognize it, right? Because there's gardens of bliss. And what is arrogance? The Prophet defined it. He said, "Batrul haq wa ghamtun nas." It's that you would reject the truth because you believe you own the truth. Meaning, when you're interacting with someone on some subject, when they start to talk, you're not listening. You're not interested to know what they have to say. You're not trying to learn anything. You are waiting to prove to them that you are right and that you know. And then you look down upon others. You condescend people. You see yourself as on a status, whether it be from wealth, whether it be from race, gender, any of these things, or you may even think because of your religion, that you're better than other people. Who? Your religion? Who made it yours in the first place? Right? Inna ad-deena 'inda Allah al-Islam. The one who goes around like, I'm on the haqq and I know and I have all the knowledge and those are not doing because I said, well, who are you? So humble yourself. So he's al-mutakabbir. He has the right to say, I am the greatness of the heavens and the earth and I am giving you. And you'll see when we get into izzah how his greatness operates as a dominating force. So we have to be strong as believers, because when we know we're with greatness, when we know that our value is coming from the absolute greatness, the exalted, lofty transcendence, that's what makes us tick. That's what gives us. We feel confident and comfortable in Him and through Him and by Him, praising Him the whole way. That's the attitude of the believer. Someone once said, when you have a problem, don't just say, oh God, I have a big problem. Rather say, oh problem, I have a big God. That's the attitude. It says, Allahu Akbar. Don't get caught up. I'm telling you, when you look up into the notion of psychology and when you look at these spiritual teachings and the practices of divine remembrance that the Prophet himself, who lived under humiliation, abuse, constant threat and rejection for 23 years, and he was always smiling. Sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Pretty much most people would say this person will go through serious depression and problems and all of that. There were times when he had little weak times, but he would go back to Allah within moments and then he would be just fine. This attitude is what we need in order to succeed as believers. Don't claim weakness or inability because you assume that you're not capable. When you know that He is capable, and when you know that He has the power, you will try your best and know that I am not supposed to bring results. I do my best. I am weak, I am feeble. Whatever His will is, and He has the absolute truth, that's what will happen, and I'm confident with that. I'm comfortable with it. So He is Al-Aziz. He is the untouchable Almighty, the one that always overcomes. In Surah Al-Shu'ara, He talks about prophets a lot. And then He talks about وَإِنَّ رَبَّكَ لَهُوَ الْعَزِيزُ الرَّحِيمُ. And He, in like 10 times in one surah, like 5-6 pages, He goes through this. Truly your Lord, your nurturing Lord, He is the Almighty, the Merciful. Meaning true might, true power, true influence is rooted in the best interests of everyone. To care for the needs of people. The benevolent king and ruler. That is the nature of God. Outside of that, throughout the Quran, mostly God, He uses Al-Hakim with Al-Aziz. So the mighty, the overwhelming force that cannot be taken down, the one that cannot be stopped, is merciful and compassionate and wise. Meaning, if you have authority, if you have some power given to you, it will be a problem and a fitna and a turmoil for yourself and those around you unless you are compassionate and using wisdom. That you are thinking about your decisions, looking out for the best interests of other people as well as the grand scheme of things in the big picture for social welfare as you fit into it. This is the attitude of a believer in how rule comes, izzah, what dignity really is. And so like, a lot of people think dignity is just proving oneself about, like what is a bully? Is the bully is trying to make oneself feel better than other people. So then they make them feel down. But for us, I feel better. I feel like I have power when I make others feel up. When I make others feel comfortable. When I make others feel understood and taken care of. That's izzah. That's greatness. That's power for us. Al-Aziz actually is the description in the Quran that comes with most others. Ghafoor, Hamid, there's many actually different. Alim, there is no other description that comes directly related to so many other descriptions, meaning everything about God is izzah. Everything is might and beautiful power and something that has no end to its greatness. The Queen of Sheba warns us of the powers of this world. Al-muluk إذا دخلوا قرية أفسدوها وجعلوا أعزة أهلها أذلة وكذلك يفعلون. When the kings who want power for themselves, and they want to be seen as the source of all power, they look to find who are the most influential, the most people with a way that could possibly diminish their value as the great ruler. And then they ruin them and they make them seem to be the weak or the humiliated or the lowly. They try to put them down. This is the corruption of humanity. So if someone is working hard to make you low or weak, then you should assume that means you have power that they fear. Now we see Islamophobia for what it is. You see? If we're really just a bunch of terrorist people who hate women and all of that, why do they have to make such a huge campaign internationally? People would just see it. Look at those messed up Muslims and how they are. But anyone who sees and studies would know what's wrong with the Muslim world is that there isn't a knowledge and practice of Islam that is thriving at every level of society. They have been deprived of that. And what their struggle is an absence of what made them great and put them there as all of these countries and nations with all these cultures under one theological umbrella. There was greatness in them. We need to make sure that doesn't come back, because that will what? If you've been listening, it will threaten the model they have of the great and powerful, where certain people's lives do not matter. Because that ruins their economic power and control and their planning. And so, when you look at Joseph and his brothers, right? Prophet Joseph, peace and blessings be upon him. It's important we know these terms in English so we can relate to our neighbors here, inshallah. So Yusuf, this is Joseph in English. So, Joseph is just a kid like his brothers, and, they said, we're going to kill this kid. Why? Because dad really likes him, right? But why does dad like him? The end shows, because he's the most righteous and most worthy of prophethood than all of them. And they don't like that. They're hoping that they can have power. They have a immature, self-absorbed, devilish thing that overcame them. Right? And then when you look at the people, why do you think? The people of his progeny after many generations are what? Those who Pharaoh made them slaves. You see? Pharaoh knows we need to make them low. Because if they have their freedoms and all of that, it might threaten my ability to be Pharaoh here. And then Moses was called to bring them out for that reason. Jesus, he's the Messiah. He's the awaited special prophet. He is the one that is supposed to reform them and bring them back to a proper understanding. He starts challenging them. He starts telling them that they're corrupt. Who? The rabbis, the leaders of the Jewish community. And they see he's doing all these miracles, and they see he knows the Torah better than them. But then they said, let's kill this guy, right? Because what he represented to them. The hypocrites of Medina. Who was their leader? Abdullah ibn Ubay as-Salul. If you look at his story was he was working to build a sense of unity amongst Aus and Khazraj, and he saw himself moving into a position of great respect and leadership, and then this Muhammad comes. Now he can hear the Quran, he knows the stories, he sees what has happened with the believers, but it threatens his desire to be a powerful person. Inna al-izzata lillahi jami'a. So they said, when they were on a journey, and there was a dispute amongst Muhajirin and Ansar. So the hypocrites among them, Abdullah ibn Ubay, he starts cultivating in them. يقولون لئن رجعنا إلى المدينة ليخرجن الأعز منها الأذل ولله العزة ولرسوله وللمؤمنين ولكن المنافقين لا يعلمون. So they were saying, when we get back, the noble amongst us, meaning those who will reject Muhammad and his message, We will remove these lowly, weak people, these people who came from Mecca, from our land. And that was their plan. And they talked about that. They were going to do that. It's in the Quran, Surah Al-Munafiqun. And they did not know that God, His messenger, and the believers who follow the messenger, as he shined the light that God sent him with, that the true power is with them. And they're not about power for themselves. It is shining and reflecting the power of God in the world. Which is, as we said, most commonly combined with Rahim and Hakim. Compassion and wisdom. Which neither one of those are selfish traits. Those are traits where you look for the interest of others. But people who seek their own power and their own worldly domination, that's the devilish way. He thought he should be, because of all of his ideas, the one that is being bowed down to. This is the satanic mindset. We're trying to relieve the world of this influence. And that's the power of God, not the power of ourselves. So this concept brings courage, confidence, hope, contentment, to know that He is the greatest, He is the mighty, and that my greatness only comes through Him. That if I'm following His guidance, if I'm remembering Him, if I'm reflecting on how I deal with situations with His message, with the example of the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, activating a true shahada, a declaration of faith as a real lived reality. When I'm doing like that, that's greatness. And whatever the outcome is His business, not mine. And so I'm content with that. And when I die in that state, I will achieve the greatness of success. Because I have followed the pattern that I was given. So the mindset of hypocrisy, the mindset is going back to worldly illusions of greatness. أَيَبْتَغُونَ عِنْدَهُمُ الْعِزَّةِ فَإِنَّ الْعِزَّةَ لِلَّهِ جَمِيعًا. The people thought, these people, this political party, this political candidate, this ideology of economic whatever, this is where it's going to come from. I need to go to them for what I need in this world. No. You need to go back to Allah because He's the source of everything. مَنْ كَانَ يُرِيدُ الْعِزَّةِ. Whoever would like to have greatness, فَإِنَّ الْعِزَّةَ لِلَّهِ جَمِيعًا. That all comes from God and no one else. So ask Allah to give us a sense of might and greatness and beauty in His message and His revelation. And we ask Him to preserve us on this path until our time comes, so that we are ready to embrace the full extent of greatness in the hereafter. Jazakumullah khair.